Okay, we can start. Hereby I open this academic ceremony in which Marta Osei-Marfo will defend the academic thesis, Sustainable Sanitation System in Ghana, a biogas approach. May I invite you to present a summary of your study and the conclusions of your thesis. The floor is yours. Marta. Marta, you have to unmute. Yeah. Marta, can you hear us?
Hello.
You can start with your presentation. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Dear Pro-Rector, dear members of the degree committee, dear family, friends, and audience, in the next 15 minutes, I will present to you my PhD research entitled Sustainable Sanitation System in Ghana, a Biogas Approach. Sustainable sanitation is one that is economically viable, socially acceptable, technically and institutionally appropriate, and protects the environment and natural resources. Biogas, on the other hand, is the metabolic product of anaerobic digestion, which is composed mainly of methane, carbon dioxide, and trace quantities of other gases like hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen, and nitrogen. What actually necessitated this study is that in Ghana, there's woefully inadequate plans for the treatment of human excreta. And this is as a result of most of the sanitation systems being on-site. They are on-site, and so fecal sludge is accumulated whenever it is used.
Martha, I don't see the new slides, so I think you should forward the slides.
Hello.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It's still on the first slide in my.
I'm forwarding it. I have forwarded it, please.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the fourth slide.
I think she works on two screens, and she has the wrong screen shared.
Please, can you see it?
No, we see the first slide only.
Oh, I'm on the fourth slide.
Oh. Can you stop the screen share and then start it again? And
okay.
Kindly put it in presentation mode.
Yes, please, it is on presentation mode.
Yes, I think what is happening is you share the PowerPoint, but not the presentation from the PowerPoint itself. So you have the PowerPoint on. So now you have to stop the share. Yes, and if you now click on the screen, then you should now be able to select the right view from the PowerPoint.
Then I put it on slideshow.
Yeah, okay, that doesn't work. No. Marta, do you have two screens in front of you?
Just one screen. I have only one screen.
Oh, and first put it on presentation mode and then do share screen if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, don't stop the presentation itself.
There we are. We are now on the 4th slide.
Yeah, but that's in the present PowerPoint itself.
Ah.
Then I have to stop share before I can.
Yeah, first stop the share. And then turn on the presentation. So not to share, but only in PowerPoint, the presentation itself. So start the slideshow and then go back to Zoom. And then when you click share, then you should be able to select the right view from the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Hello, please, can you see it?
We still see the same view, but you don't. Yeah, I think
Hello.
you should, in this view where you are now, just click on the slide which you are talking to. So if you are on slide 4, just click on slide 4 in this view. Marta? Yeah. Seems there is an internet connection problem. I hope she reconnects faster. Our candidate got disconnected from the meeting. I hope she reconnects fast now, Prorector.
Joshua, I just sent you the presentation so that maybe instead of her sharing her screen, you could share the screen and do the PowerPoint when she returns. And then she will tell you when to put up another slide. Would that be the solution?
That works as well, yes.
Yeah.
Did you receive it?
Like in the old days.
Yeah, it's good to have an assistant who
Yeah,
sort
sure.
of helps you out, huh?
Yeah.
Joshua, did you get it?
Yes, I'm opening it now. Marta connects back to the meeting.
Okay, shall I try and explain this to her?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, there she comes back.
Martha, can you hear me? Martha,
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I just sent your presentation as I had it to Joshua.
Okay.
So he will now start screen sharing. So you can just tell him when to put up another slide. He will start at slide 4. And then if you say next slide, please, he will shift to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, hoping that this will be okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and I'm praying that it'll be okay now.
Yes. Thank you. Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. So, the problem, or what actually necessitated the study, is that there's woefully inadequate and unsustainable sanitation treatment for human excreta in Ghana. This is as a result of most of the system being on-site sanitation that are used in the various households and other institutions for the treatment of human excreta. And so the accumulated fecal sludge end up in the environment. And because it is disposed of in the environment, the government at the end of every year spends an amount of 420 million Ghana cedis in solving sanitation related diseases, which could have been prevented. Next slide, please. This is the sanitation situation. Next slide, please. Here. The sanitation situation in Ghana. And I will emphasize on the total. In Ghana, only 21% have access to basic sanitation, which is families that exclusively use such as sanitation, improved sanitation system. And we have 45% having access to limited sanitation facilities, that is those who share with other households. Then 13% having access to unimproved sanitation system, that is using simple pit latrine, which eventually impact on the environment, and 22% practicing open defecation. Next slide, please. The aim of the study was to assess the feasibility and the acceptability of biogas solutions in sanitation in Ghana. Next slide. And to achieve this objective, 6 research studies were conducted. The first one looked at overview of biogas technology in Ghana, and then the next study assessed the performance of existing biogas plants. Then, based on the outcome of studies 1 and 2, a redesigned biogas plant was proposed. Then, study 4 looked at social perception on using human excreta for biogas, and then also another study on willingness of household heads to adopt biogas technology. And the final study looked at institutional involvement in promoting the technology in Ghana. Next slide, please. So the methodological approaches that were used included field observations of biogas plants, and I just said there were interviews face-to-face and telephone. One, questionnaires were developed for studies, willingness, and then the perception. Then there was also laboratory analysis for waste water samples, and then the design module that was also developed. Please, next slide. Then the analysis of data included content analysis, estimations, and computation. Then Excel and SPSS 21 were also used for descriptive and correlation analysis. Then structural equation modeling using analysis of movement structures, version 23 was also used. Please, next slide. The study 1 focused on factors affecting diffusion and its associated challenges. And the findings revealed that the initial installation and maintenance costs appear high. Then expectations of users were not fully met, with the background of service providers being mainly artisans and graduates from other disciplines, with only few of them being engineers. Next slide, please. Then also, there was lack of government subsidies and financial support. Then the designs that were in the system, as you can see in the figure, they were unstandardized. You could see that the various designs were being disseminated. And then there was also lack of biogas or gas production. There was no follow-up, maintenance, and monitoring. Then there was an issue with market value for the biofertilizer that came out of the whole process. Next slide, please. Study 2 focused on characterizing wastewater, and then also it assessed the effluent quality as well as the treatment efficiencies of 3 existing biogas plants, which are in unique institutions, one being a senior high school institution in Fansipim, then one being university, a tertiary institution, and a judiciary correctional center, Ankafo maximum prison. Physical, chemical, and biological parameters were analyzed on the raw wastewater and then on the effluent. And so many parameters were considered, but few of these were shared. Please, next slide. With the UCC plant, only COD, that's chemical oxygen demand, was within the Ghana EPA guideline values, with all the others being above it. Next slide, please. The Infantsipim also, for that one, none of these parameters were within the EPA guideline values. They were all above. Then finally, the Ankafo maximum prison. Please, next slide. With that one, it was the BOD and the COD that were within the EPA guideline values. Next slide, please. Study 3 proposed an alternative model to the existing biogas plants to address the challenges that were obtained from studies 1 and 2. So a new design concept was developed, which would operate through 4 units: an anaerobic digester, anaerobic baffle reactor, constructed wetland, and disinfection chamber. Next slide, please. So this is a design, a proposed technical drawing for the redesigned system. And this system actually meets per analysis, sustainability analysis, meets the 3 pillars of sustainability, which are environmental, social, and economic. And then there was some little cost estimation, which revealed that the estimated cost for this redesign, the proposed design, is approximately the same as that of the existing one. Please, next slide. Then studies 4 and 5 each presented a behavioral study on social perceptions and willingness to use biogas technology using the theory of planned behavior constructs, that is attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control. So at the end of the study, for this particular one, study 4 revealed that attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control were significantly related to intentions to use human excreta for biogas. Next slide, please. However, perceived behavioral control showed low controllability. And this one, it was realized that the cost implication as well as stigma were issues for those who intended to use human excreta for biogas. But it was also realized that the SN, that is subjective norm, had a major influence on intentions to use human excreta for biogas, with the emphasis being on religious leaders. Here in Ghana, religious leaders really have influence on their members, and so it was a major factor which could contribute to people using human excreta for biogas. Then 35 investigated willingness and the dynamics of household health intentions to adopt the technology. So the results show that the dynamics of ethnicity and education significantly influence household health intentions to or to add biogas technology. Next slide, please. '36, which is about institutional involvement, assess the level of institutional involvement and barriers to promoting biogas in Ghana. And the barriers that we identified included lack of a national biogas policy, low government commitment, and low financial support. And then the figure here also displays the level of institutional involvement. Financial institutions were performing poorly. There was very low, as high as 95% involvement. And then government institutions also were showing low involvement, being 69%, with only the biogas service providers having a moderate involvement. And this one, it was so because they considered the technology as a business. And so they were all the time either advertising it by posters or sometimes on radio stations talking about it. And because they see it as a business, they usually install it anyhow without considering its sustainability and how efficient it would be. Next slide, please. So at the end of the study or the research, I'm concluding that biogas technology is a sustainable and environmentally friendly technology for sustainable waste management, and that biogas technology is a feasible sanitation solution here in Ghana, because most of waste generated are bioorganics, and human excreta is also one, and that people are willing to adopt this technology due to the numerous benefits that come with this particular technology. The figure here depicts the technology. We get so many benefits from it, which also improves the environment, the quality of the environment. Finally, the next slide, please. This technology, a solution in sustainable sanitation, when implemented, I revise this, when implemented, is going to have impact on SDGs 3, which is good health and well-being, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 6, sustainable sanitation for all, and 7, clean energy for all, and finally, SDG 13, which is climate action. So when this technology is actually implemented, it is really going to have impact on some of these SDGs. Then the next slide, I would like to appreciate NUFIC for the grant to conduct this study, and then Maastricht University as well as the University of Cape Coast for the support in terms of providing the conducive environment for me to do this research. And then I would also like to thank the assessment committee for evaluating my study, and then my wonderful supervisors for their patience and the support in improving me. Thank you very much. I would now hand over the floor back to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Due to technical difficulties, we will make the position a little bit longer, till 10 minutes after 2, like we do in soccer, so to say. So the first opposition will be done by Professor van der Borne, who is a professor in patient education. Professor van der Borne. Je moet nog unmuten.
Thank you, Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, I read your dissertation with great interest, and I think you did a beautiful series of studies, and also you published these studies in appropriate journals. But let me first tell you that I think you are a very courageous person.
Thank you.
When you started your research on the further development of a biogas approach for the processing of human excreta, you must have known or felt that biogas production is a complicated process in many ways. Coming from an agricultural background, I have closely observed the frequent and long-term problems of Dutch farmers in the processing of animal excreta through biogas production. biogas production is not a straightforward process. There are also strong biological and biochemical processes involved that are not always easy to control. Despite strong governmental support for this animal biogas production, it took Dutch farmers quite a long time before this was working well and was financially attractive. In chapter 7 of your dissertation, you mentioned that one of the barriers for the development of biogas technology is the lack of financial resources, and also that financial institutions are reluctant to be involved in biogas technology and in cooperation with biogas service providers. I think this is understandable, as you showed in chapter 2 in your stakeholder analysis, that half of the biogas technology users were completely disappointed and that only 21% were satisfied. Do you think that biogas technology for the processing of human excreta is the most important way forward, or that other ways of human excreta processing, like, for example, excreta collection and processing of excreta for agriculture manure, are more feasible and sustainable? What do you think is the future here? I would like to hear your opinion on that based on the experiences from your research.
Thank you very much, my esteemed, highly esteemed opponent. In my opinion, I think that it is sustainable to use biogas technology for human excreta, because the system is such that from the study that I did, most of them were connected to toilet facility. And so immediately you use the toilet, everything gets into the digester, which is then processed for managing the excreta, and then the other benefits, which is about the biogas that you receive for other purposes. With the agriculture, that one is also possible. So both ways are possible. And I think if we commit to it in terms of providing the financial support, then most of the challenges that we have in terms of managing the quality of the environment, the challenges that I outlined will be solved, in the sense that even the digestives, which comes from the whole process, can now be used by the farmers on their farm instead of using the chemical fertilizer, which is also very expensive. In using this, it will actually even improve their livelihood economic-wise. So both ways are sustainable. Thank you.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we should continue to develop, to further develop the biogas approach that has started in Ghana. Okay. A follow-up question here is, in analyzing the effectiveness and feasibility of a new or adapted biogas technology, what kind of research design would you prefer, and what would be the most important variables to measure the effectiveness or success of these new technologies?
The last part
What would be your research design?
The last part is breaking. There was a little break in the line.
Okay. Okay.
Hello? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to hear your ideas about what kind of research design you would use in evaluating an adapted or a new biogas technology. What would be your research design to understand the feasibility and the possible effectiveness of this new technology? And what would be the most important variables in that evaluation?
Okay. With the
First, I would like to hear your opinion about the research design.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my highly esteemed opponent. with my design, the proposed design, there will be monitoring of the effluent quality. And then also from time to time, we go and then assess whether there is something, a problem, anything at all. We realized in the previous design that maintenance or follow-ups were an issue. There was no follow-up on the digesters that have been installed. And so if even there is a little problem which could easily be fixed, then it escalates into something because there's no monitoring, there's no follow-up, and that is the problem which actually resulted in most of the systems breaking down. So with this new design, there will be follow-up, there will be monitoring, and then also the monitoring will include evaluation of the effluent quality to know whether the treatment is actually effective. And then also the digestives that will come out of it. There will be education on using the biodigester so that farmers will know that that is even better, because that one is not a chemical, it's a biological thing, it's a biological product, and so it will improve yield. And when they see those results, they will be more interested in continuously using the technology. Thank you.
Okay. But would you also be, you're proposing in your evaluation to monitor and to analyze the processes of your intervention. But wouldn't an appropriate design also include comparison of your approach of processing human excreta through biogas with another way of processing human excreta? What are your thoughts about that? Because in your studies you really showed that developing an effective intervention is not an easy process. A lot of people that started with the biogas were disappointed. And so if a new technology would be applied, wouldn't be a comparison with another way of processing human excreta be an option in your evaluation? What is your opinion?
Yeah, thank you very much. With this new design, for it to be effective, then there is a need for training. There should be training. People will be given education on it. So if this particular design is approved, then it will be a standardized one that anyone who wishes to disseminate this technology will use. With that one, the monitoring will be very easy. Instead of just allowing anybody at all to install what they have. So the training and then also having a standardized design will solve the issue of managing the excreta.
Okay, thank you for your answer, and I think I give the floor back to the pro-rector.
Thank you, Professor van der Borne. The opposition will continue by Professor Donker. He is a professor in civil engineering at KNUST. Professor Donker.
Thank you very much, Rector. Hi, Martha, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. So I have just one question for you, and based on your answer, probably I may do a follow-up. So your study concluded that you had 4 critical barriers, that constrain uptake of biogas technologies, and these 4 are institutional barriers, individual idiosyncrasies, and the perceived technical malfunction of the system, and then excessive capital expenditure. So taking just the last 2, between perceived technical malfunction and capital expenditure, which of these 2 would you think it's a predominant factor that inhibits uptake of biogas technologies in Ghana? And why do you think that is the case?
Thank you very much. I highly esteem it. In fact, it is the capital expenditure that actually inhibits people from adopting. From the study, I realized that people were interested in the technology, but when they inquire and know the cost implication, they get scared. Basically, because most of the people, the income level, they are actually within the low income levels, and having very low income with an installation cost being as high as about $1,500, it looks very impossible for them to install. And so if there is government subsidy, and in other countries, because of government subsidy, the technology is actually doing well. People are really adopting the biogas technology. And so if we also have a similar thing implemented here, it will help, or it will increase the adoption rate. Thank you.
Yes, so my last question, this is not too philosophical, but it's practical. I mean, people would not mind taking loans, to buy vehicles and stuff, and then do monthly installments. 1,500 in today's Ghana cedis is just about 12,000 Ghana cedis or whatever. So is it not possible for individual households to go take loans from the banks to finance these technologies, and pay over time, instead of we thinking about government giving people subsidies to pay for the technologies? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much. Interestingly, people, we generate waste, but yet people do not care in spending on their waste management. They think it is not their responsibility to take care of the waste that they generate. So anywhere they find themselves, they just dispose it of. And it's actually having a negative impact on the environment. And the problem that I indicated, if the citizen is not concerned about the waste management and everything ends up in the environment, the government will rather end up losing so much, because when there is an outbreak, that issue has to be solved. So people, yes, are interested in getting loans for vehicles, but when it comes to waste management, it is a different thing altogether. They wouldn't want to get loans to manage their waste.
Thank you very much, Director. On this note, I would want to yield my time.
Thank you. Then the opposition will be continued by Professor Nyako. He is the Vice Dean, Faculty of Civil and Geoengineering at KNUST. Professor Nyako.
Thank you, Director. Dear candidate, I read your thesis with great interest, and I particularly like the way you combine the technical aspects, financial, institutional aspects.
Thank you.
You did mention that a shortfall in the development of biogas technology, one of the main reasons is the lack of subsidy. Can you provide your justification why government should provide subsidies for toilets?
Thank you very much, my highly esteemed opponent. If, in my opinion, government needs to provide subsidy, because if you do not, the other way will happen, and you have to spend that money in solving the challenges or the problem that will evolve at the end of the whole process. Government spending this huge amount every year could be used as a subsidy in developing this technology, so that we will have progress when the environmental quality is good. Progress in terms of economic will also increase. But if government fails to give a subsidy, especially for those who cannot afford, this one is for those who cannot afford. Some people can afford, so those who could afford are there. For them, they may not need subsidy, but those who cannot afford, there is a need for government subsidy. Because if government does not do it, then they will end up spending a huge amount in solving sanitation-related diseases. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I like the targeted subsidy. Initially, you did not make it explicit. But I do acknowledge that targeting subsidies can also be challenging. Related to that, would the subsidies be for only biogas technology or dear candidate, would the subsidy be for biogas technologies or sanitation technologies in general?
Thank you very much. I am interested in biogas technology. So I'm advocating for a subsidy for biogas technology because the benefits that come with it are enormous as compared to the other sanitation technologies. So I will advocate for subsidy for biogas technology because it will perform the same function as the others with extra benefits being accrued. Thank you.
And how does the cost of biogas technologies compare with the other technologies?
Thank you very much. With the other technologies, for instance, septic tank, if I'm to use septic tank as an example, the initial installation cost is about 5,000. But every year or every 2 years, you have to dislodge. The dislodging fee is about 500 Ghana cedis. And all these that are mentioned, these costs that are mentioned, provided there is no inflation, there's no inflation. If it doesn't change, it remains constant. Every 2 years, you are going to spend this amount. If you add that to the initial cost and you compare it to the initial cost for biogas technology, you realize that the benefits you derive from the biogas are more in the sense that the biogas, you are going to manage the waste. You have no challenge with dislodging fee, and then you also get other benefits like biogas, of which the person using the septic tank will have to use other energy sources like LPG and charcoal. And these, when you add these costs to that simple design, septic tank, you realize that it is economical to install biogas as compared to a septic tank. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. My last question has to do with your suggestion of setting up a regulatory body. Will that also be for only biogas technologies or all sanitation technologies?
Thank you very much. For now, we'll start with biogas technology and then rope in the other technology so that, but in fact, I will even suggest, or I've even suggested that when this board is formulated and there's monitoring, then we'll try and then implement it, especially in new developing areas for already established communities. Sometimes because of space issues, it might not be so feasible to convert the already existing system into biogas. It may, but depending on how the whole space looks like or how the place is. So we will start with the biogas technology and then rope in with the other sanitation designs or sanitation technology. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate, and over to you, Pro-Rector.
Thank you, Professor Nyako. The opposition will be continued by Professor Ruiter, Professor of Health and Social Psychology at Maastricht University. Professor Ruiter.
Thank you, Mr. Pro-Rector. Dear candidate, first of all, my congratulations on your work, on the quality of your work. And I also would like to pass this on to your promoters, Professor Aoué and De Vries. It is very nice work and already 3 papers published. And I'm sure the final one will also be published and the number 5 also, or 4 papers, sorry, 4 papers, and 5 and 6 will also be published. I must admit, I was asked to be on the committee, and I was a bit surprised to be on the committee at the first instance when I was reading the first 3 chapters, because I have a background in psychology, health promotion, and I didn't read much about psychology there in the first 3 chapters. But then you run some studies, especially in chapters 5 and 6, where you look at the theory of planned behavior and how that helps in understanding people's decision making. You do not have a background in psychology. If I see the previous education that you took, the places that you have worked in the past, what kind of value do you see to using psychology to use the behavioral sciences in answering your questions in this dissertation?
Thank you very much, my highly esteemed opponent. With the framework that I use, the TPP, please, are you referring to the framework that I use? Hello?
No, in general. So you're new to the field of behavioral sciences, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
What did it give you?
In fact, it has helped me appreciate the fact that an individual's behavior can be influenced by another person, and which is so interesting. I didn't know that if you decide to do something and then you consider someone so important and dear to you, when the person intervenes, then you may change your decision. So that is one thing that I've really appreciated in this study. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, does it also mean that you started to realize that behavior is more complex than you ever thought?
Yes.
And
behavior.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I've realized that it is more complex. Behavior is actually complex, not as simple as we see or we perceive.
Yeah, that's our struggle continuously in our profession. And so we are really trying to understand human behavior. From that understanding, think about ways to influence and change behavior to the better. And now you took an approach where you said, okay, I have one main theoretical framework that's used for explaining human behavior. That's the theory of planned behavior. And what I read several times, that you undertook 2 studies to test this theory of planned behavior. And if I'm right, then you conclude this theory is very helpful in understanding what are the main predictors, determinants of decision-making in this context. But do you think that you have sufficient information now to tell government and other stakeholders what kind of interventions need to be done in order to promote the use of biogas installations?
Yes, thank you very much. With the information I have, I think we can start from somewhere, in the sense that it was very clear from my study that subjective norms, especially religious leaders, have influence on intention to adopt the technology. From the literature that I did, other studies actually indicated that there was a community where they wanted to use excreta as fertilizer. And then they asked the people how they think the research or the way forward, what they think can be done to say to them using excreta. And they said that leading by example, highly esteemed people in the community, when they see them using it, then they know, they will believe that indeed it is a good thing. So when we also use it, it will not have any negative effect on us. So we can actually influence behavior through these religious leaders, actually.
And how would you do that then? What would be the kind of, so if you want to use religious leaders, what kind of strategies would you use to make use of this knowledge that religious leaders play an important role?
Thank you very much. So, first of all, religious leaders will have to be encouraged to adopt the technology. And then from time to time, when it is on education about the technology, they will also be involved. They will actually, because they have started or they are using the technology, they will have the confidence to inform their members that indeed the technology is good. So it will start from there when they adopt it and then they talk about it. The members will also be willing to use it.
Yeah, so the religious leaders is a kind of innovators or early adopters, and that makes you be thinking about diffusion of innovation theory.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm pleased with the answers.
Thank you. Then Dr. Spicht will continue. He is Associate Professor, Department of Family Medicine. Dr. Spicht.
Yes, thank you, Pro-Rector. And thank you, Marta, for your excellent presentation and your excellent work. I really admired the work. It was really interesting. As the Pro-Rector mentioned, I'm from the Department of Family Medicine. So just like Professor Ruiter, my background is not really in technology. So I had to look up. I used your thesis together with YouTube to find out exactly what biogas plants are and how they are used and how they are constructed. You can find very nice videos on how to construct them in your garden. So I was really pleased with the thesis, and I have to make you compliments on the huge effort that you did to do this study by study and to cover all aspects of this innovation. My question is about the sustainability of the biogas system. You in proposition 2, you mentioned that in your view it is a sustainable system. But I was really wondering, when do you call something sustainable? Because if I see this biogas system, the building it is very complicated. I would say I couldn't do it myself. If that is a standard, using it requires, some knowledge on exactly how to do it and using it in the right way. Then the maintenance of the system is quite complicated. I have a lot of experience in Ethiopia, and I asked my Ethiopian friends, how about biogas systems in your setting? And they said, well, a few years ago, there was a lot of attention from the Ethiopian government also and in Ethiopia to use these biogas systems. But nowadays, you don't hear anything about it anymore. So I guess in their system, it was not sustainable. And if you look, for example, in our Netherlands, now recently, the last 5 to 10 years, everybody had solar panels on their roofs. Would you call that a sustainable system? We cook on gas coming from many countries. Is that a sustainable system? So when is a system really a sustainable system in your view? And could you then say that your biogas system is really a sustainable system?
Yeah. Thank you very much, my esteemed opponent. Yes, when we say a system is sustainable, it means that it is feasible in terms of its implementation, the features or the characteristics that will make the system work. We have all those conditions available. And then also, when you compare the benefits that you are going to get from that particular system and its cost or the negatives, the positives are higher than the negative. And that when implemented or when such a system is used, it is actually going to improve the lives of the individuals. It is also going to improve the environment. So when we talk of a system which is sustainable, these are the qualities or the features that I will attribute to such system. That it will improve the individual's life, it will improve the quality of the environment, and then also other benefits that come with it can be seen or can be measured. Yeah.
So it is more about the quality of the system that you are mentioning now, that it can improve life and that it is relatively cheap, etc. So you don't look at it from the perspective of how many people use it in a country for how many years. So I don't hear you say something like that. So I would expect a sustainable system is a system that many people use in a country and that is without external funding being used for many years or something, but you don't consider that as a sustainable system?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. For that, many people will start using it when the implementation or when the uptake is high. But you realize that the challenge for many people actually adopting the system is with the funding, the cost implication. And so, I get your point that the system should be cheap. Sometimes being cheap actually cannot be used alone as a measure for sustainability. A system can be cheap, but when you consider the overall impact, then you realize it is rather expensive. So sustainability is not always about the cost, how low the cost is or how cheap the technology is, but it's about the benefit and how it will improve lives and then the quality of the environment. Thank you.
Okay, but what you, in my definition of use and constant use over a longer period of time, would you then say, I would then say that the biogas system is not a sustainable system yet. Would you agree with me on that?
No. No.
Why not? because you look more to the qualities of the system and not on the use of the system, I guess.
No, the use of the system, in fact, that is what I'm saying. People have perception, a certain perception about the technology. When there is education, when the education actually goes down well for people to appreciate the technology, then the uptake will actually increase.
Okay, thank you for this nice discussion. The product, do I have a chance for another question?
Yeah, you can go on.
Okay, I would like to go to one of your propositions then. It is proposition 9. And it says that no matter the prison in which you are, nobody can imprison the power of your imagination. I would think that is quite a positive proposition, because I can imagine many prison systems where really the imagination and the thoughts of the people being there are really influenced in a negative way usually. So why did you come up with this very positive proposition?
Yeah, this proposition actually is a motivation that I actually got some years back, and I realized that no matter where you find yourself, or no matter the situation in which you find yourself, if I should bring in sanitation system management, for instance, no matter how poor we find ourselves, there is always a way out. We can improve it if we determine to, if we make up our mind that indeed this technology, when adopted, will help solve the problems that we find ourselves in, and it will liberate us from the situation that we find ourselves in. Indeed, it will happen. So it is actually a motivation which lets me do things even if there are some impediments or there are some hindrances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I give the word back to the product.
Thank you, Dr. Spicht. We will go on with Professor Krutsen. He's a professor of behavioral change and technology. Professor Krutsen.
Thank you very much. Dear candidates, it's been a while that we've met each other, so I'm really glad to see you again, although it's in a virtual room, but I'm really glad that you're here at this place. So I start with the risk of being boring. I started congratulating on your thesis. Very nice work, and Yeah, what I appreciated is the mixture that you did of technological and behavioral studies. So I really appreciated that. And I think you're part of a club of 4 people from Ghana who all did their PhD on some WASH-related topic. And I think what you all had in common is that you really took the context of Ghana really into account in your studies. So I think that was really valuable. Then over to my questions. It's probably not a surprise that my attention was caught by the behavioral studies. So starting with chapter 5 and 6, or focusing on chapter 5 and 6. And I actually start with chapter 5. And I think it's really good you did a belief elicitation study there before you send out the questionnaires. And I was actually intrigued by the results of the belief elicitation. And they are nicely summarized on the table on page 103. I basically want to go to these results, to these control beliefs, because the first control belief, or one of the that are shared, is the hex knowledge. And I looked at how you operationalize that, and that is an individual's information about. So that's a knowledge thing. But how is that knowledge related to perceived behavioral control?
Hello?
Hello, it seems like...
No, it is breaking. It's not clear at all.
Okay. Can you hear me now again?
Yes.
Okay. I'll skip all the compliments. Great work. I go to the question. I look at the beliefs, and you say the control beliefs, and one of the control beliefs is the hex knowledge. And you measure that as an individual's information extracted. So that's a knowledge thing, I would say. But how is that related to perceived behavioral control? Can you explain?
Yeah, thank you very much, my highest compliment. Yes, knowledge about a technology will actually make the adoption of the technology easy or difficult. If you do not have knowledge about it, you may see it as something so complicated or something so difficult to do. But if you have knowledge about it, then you can take an informed decision. That is why it is actually in the model that I developed. If you have knowledge about hex use, knowing that it is not dangerous, it will not have any, depending on how you use it, it will not have any health, negative health impact on you, then you'll be confident in using it. It will make it easier for you to adopt the technology. Yes.
Okay, but wouldn't you say then, because you have this nice functional equation modeling, because how you explain it now, I would say that this knowledge leads to you feeling capable of doing something. So that's perceived behavior control, and that leads to interaction. So that this is almost like a prerequisite. So in your model, I wouldn't have added to perceived behavior control. I would add it in the beginning. Or do you see that differently?
Well, I think for me, well, I'm not actually a social scientist, well, but per the understanding that I got from the technology, from the model, sorry, I realized that having knowledge about the technology will make it either easy or difficult for you to adopt. That is why I put it there.
All right. Then another question about that same chapter, because you basically test 2 models. Let's call it basic model, and then what you call adjusted. And in this adjusted model, you add gender and education. And when I look at the outcomes of both models, you see that the explained variance is the same. So they explain the same in terms of intention. But suddenly in this adjusted model, so if you add gender and education, then all constructs become significantly related to the intention. Do you still hear me, or? So yes, when you add hello?
Yes.
Okay, so when you add gender and education to the model, And suddenly all these psychological constructs become significantly related to intention. Do you have any ideas on why that is the case?
Yeah, thank you very much. In my opinion, I think that education, the level of one's education will actually make it easy or difficult for the person to understand a particular technology. And from the study, I realized that most of them had tertiary education. And so that is how come it actually influenced the whole model, such that those three constructs now had positive influence on intentions to perform the behavior. And then with the gender, it is there so that we will actually know where the problem will be, where the problem actually in the near future will be if the technology is to be implemented, in the sense that looking at the attitude, the variables for the attitude, then those who actually may perceive that using technology may have health impact, and the other one, environmental protection and the rest, will actually be clear with this, with the gender being part of the whole model. And of course, it was clear that the female, because the education, most of them were low, they had issue with the health impact of using herbs for biogas. So those two variables were very important. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at the prorector, whether I have time to, yeah.
Go on.
Then a final question, that now I move to chapter 6. And in chapter 6, you also add religion and culture to the model. And I think you already briefly talked about religion to one of the previous opponents. But also there, I see religion and culture as part of perceived behavioral control. So I did not really get that, because I would say, I can imagine that, of course, religion and culture have an influence, but I would see that more as background factors, as Fishbein and Eisen would call it. How do you see that they are part of perceived behavioral control?
Thank you very much.
And I'm talking about the figure on page 132.
Yes. With religion and culture, in our parts of the world, certain cultures actually see the use of human excreta as a taboo. Yes.
You're saved by the bell.
Yeah. You can give a short answer or we stop, Marta. Your choice.
Okay, so let me continue. They see the use of human excreta as a taboo, or certain category of people. Let's say males are not supposed to even go near, touch it, though we generate it. So culture was there so as to see where the problem is, or where the challenge could be, in order to, if the people are actually educated and you explain to them, then they can influence the people that indeed using human excreta shouldn't be a taboo, or shouldn't be seen as a dirty thing when you are adopting it for technology. That is why the culture was included in the whole model. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the time appointed for defending of your thesis has passed now. The degree committee will go to another room in Zoom to discuss the quality of your thesis and your defense. So you have to wait on our deliberations, but we surely come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Magda Osei-Marfo, the degree committee has assessed the quality of your thesis and the defense. In view of its positive verdict, taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. Professor De Vries is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. I invite your supervisors to now take the floor. Professor De Vries.
Yes, thank you, Pro-Rector. First, I will have to ask you a question, which is, do you promise to work in accordance with the principle of scientific integrity at all times, to be careful and honest, transparent, independent, and responsible?
I promise.
Then, by the authority vested in us by law, and in conformity with the decision of the committee present online, I hereby confer upon you, Martha Osei-Marfo, the degree of doctor, and grant you all rights attached to that by custom and law. As evidence of this, you will soon receive the degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary, and the supervisor, and affixed with the official seal of the university, which will now be shown by the beadle. And there it is. I think we owe her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear Dr. Osei-Marfo, dear Martha, it's such an honor for me to be the first to congratulate you with this honor.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to apologize for all the confusions and mishaps at the start of the meeting, especially also to Professor Awua, who on my fault, I think, came in a bit late. But anyway, she witnessed most of the session. This must be a moment that you will and can give a sigh of relief, but I hope you have a feeling of pride and satisfaction too. It has been quite a journey for your institution and for yourself. And actually, looking at your vita, your journey started long ago. You have studied and then worked at the Department of Chemistry in the University of Cape Coast. You studied water supply and environmental sanitation in Kumasi until 2008. And then you went to Burkina Faso, returning to Cape Coast in 2009. And then in 2016, we embedded on this project to build a new curriculum in WASH, in water, sanitation, hygiene, including a staff development program, which also provided the training for researchers in PhD trajectories, and one was assigned to you. That's how I met you. And today you finish. I admire you for having accomplished that. Of course, because of the work you did, which is highly relevant and important, but you combined technical, chemical, biological knowledge with social sciences to establish feasibility and acceptability of using human excreta for biogas and fertilizer production. I think that sanitation indeed should be approached from both angles, technical and behavioral. So that's where you brought us. You produced a book with 8 chapters, 6 different studies, 4 already published. Besides that, you produced still another 3 journal papers and 3 other publications. So that is something to be very, very proud of. Being a wife and the mother of 3, with all the accompanying care duties and other, problems that it brings, also the happiness, of course. And you're also still contributing to the programs in the University of Cape Coast, so it must not have been easy. Now, you visited the Netherlands for extended stays. That also was a challenge. Once you came, even just after having given birth to your youngest. I remember sending you home for the festive season at Christmas to see your family. Michael, not your husband, Michael, but Michael and Pepra, who was here with you, reminded me immediately that he also had young children, so you went back together. You spent some time there, but then still in January you came back to stay here for the remainder of that visit. I think after that, COVID times made it even harder. Your family also touched by this pandemic, but you just pursuing the goal of achieving your. Although you're not as young as many of my other PhD students, it's also been, I think, a period of personal growth. First time we met, you were very, very shy, timid, maybe also impressed by the new project, the new challenge, and the new supervisor. But now, already promoted to senior lecturer, You stand here with a firm opinion and the conviction of a strong woman. You have just clearly displayed this growth, I think, because despite all the hiccups in the beginning of your presentation, etc., you defended well. I congratulate you for that too. Cooperating with you has not been a challenge for me, but probably for you, the cooperation has been a challenge every now and then. Having said all this, I would also like to thank some persons who are here. All who have contributed, of course, in Ghana and who hopefully now are witnessing this occasion. A special word of thanks to Professor Osei-Marfo, fondly called Aunt Ezi by you. Without you, Professor Avua, this would not have been possible. It's really a pity that we have never had the opportunity to meet yet, but who knows, we can make up for that one day either here or in Ghana. I would like to thank the University of Cape Coast, especially the colleagues at the Departments of Chemistry and Water and Sanitation for providing time and opportunity for Dr. Martha for doing the studies and to come to the Netherlands. I would also like to thank Nuffic, who funded the project, and thank you, Heinz Gein, who acted as the project manager. And of course, I need to thank your family, husband, children, also the circle around them, and especially your mother. I'm well aware that the PhD trajectory also weighs heavily on the people around the candidate. So if you all have missed Martha and thought she was too much involved in her project, it was all my responsibility and my fault, and now she finished successfully, so I'm giving her back to you. Martha, again, congratulations on my behalf.
Thank you.
And I would now like to give the floor to Aunt Ezi for some words of praise. Aunt Ezi.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Martha.
Thank you.
Show today that with determination, we can make it. I want to welcome you as a strong woman for sanitation and the water sector in Ghana. I met you when you were a student doing your master's in the Department of Civil Engineering for our water supply and sanitation program. And I was happy to supervise you. And we published a paper together on the Kweshe Lagoon. It was a joy to follow your progress. And I had always wanted you to have a PhD and become a professor in a university one day. In your admission as a PhD candidate in this great university, I was so excited. And I was also very happy to be your supervisor again. I must say that your journey has been very challenging, especially when your husband had COVID and you were crying and weeping. But what kind of accident and what kind of situation in which I have gotten myself into, PhD with a husband suffering, but you managed. Your tears are now dry. This is indeed the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And I'm very also happy to see Professor Nani, which I always thought he was a woman. That he is a man. Thank you very much. In fact, it's been a pleasure working with you. Your patience, your love and concern is worth mentioning. My prayer is that you become the professor in WASH at the University of Cape Coast, as I have always dreamt about you. Well done, and I wish you success in the years ahead. Congratulations.
Thank you very much
for joining us, especially our opponents. We really appreciate, and for the sponsorship that you gave to this beloved daughter of mine, now Aunt Izzy's daughter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Osei-Marfo, also on behalf of the Board of Deans, I congratulate you with the honor you have acquired, and I hope you have a lot of fun back home and party, because I know that Ghana people like to make some fun. Although I've never been in Cape Coast, I've been many times in Tamale, and that was always a lot of fun. So I wish you a lot of fun and a lot of success in your career.
Thank you.
Hereby I declare this ceremony to be ended.